So, welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and Alobar Jones is back, and we are going to talk a little bit about Bliss and Loosh. So, yeah, Alobar, we finally made it.
Yeah, there's a few misconnects there. I just got back from holiday and I still haven't oriented myself back to work. Yeah, I'm just not there. I'm mentally, I'm not there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, that is
I'm
what
very
you
glad to be on your show again. Thank you.
that is what you get for traveling.
Now, somebody asked me who the best interviewer is for my stuff. And I had to say you because nobody knows what's going on the dark side better than you do. If
Oh,
you want to
thank
understand the dark, not the dark side if you're into it, but the dark side being critical of it. If you want to understand that, you're the girl to see. And I'm really honored to be on your show.
Oh, thank you so much. And recently, you released a video. I just want to touch on this before we go into our topic of today. Um, and that video was something about the title deeds for Earth. And I personally have made an interview last year, I guess that was with Trina Phoenix. And in that interview, it has in the title Earth Inc. So I have been suspicious for a long time that there might be some commercial aspect in all of this. So who is the moron that holds the title deed?
Oh,
And even more
yeah.
importantly, who's the idiot that thought he has the right to sell it?
$1 million question, isn't it? Yeah. And it's funny. Like we in Australia, we have a lot about Aboriginal land rights and about Aboriginal. And you can buy a black fella. You can buy a spokesman for about 25, 30 grand a year, and he'll say what you ask him to say for the media, right? And I think they got one of those sell out, hopeless, never do well types to sell the title deeds for Earth. There are a few, but also I want you to think back to those, I think they're like 12th, 13th, 14th century paintings in Italy, where they've got all those flying saucers in the background. Some of our, Google it, please. Saucers in medieval art, flying saucers in medieval art. Google it. But I think the Vatican were given an offer they couldn't refuse back in those days. Or maybe it was of their own doing, but I don't think anyone would have been able to say no to the aliens who said, sign this. Just as in all colonial games, they're all done at gunpoint. And so I think those contracts were signed under those conditions. But who are the morons? Who's the idiots? They're the guys who claim ownership of Earth on some distant planet, and they're kind of like what do you call it? The Saudis with oil. Like they don't do anything, but they just sell the rights to all of the humans living there and all of the resources and blah, 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 whatever it is. Yes, give me money, I'll sign whatever, but just keep paying. And there was a little consortium of 4 who now no longer exist. And Gaia snatched up the title deeds as soon as we made it possible for her to do so.
Gaia?
Yeah, Mother Earth, she took them.
Oh.
So she now owns, I still think there are three other title deeds that we're aware of. But what this means is that there is a group who were trading Earth material through them. And now that they don't have the title deeds, there's no way for them to trade the same material. They can't buy it and transport it across the galaxy because those guys don't own it. They don't know who owns it. They've got to go out and make new deals if they want to harvest from Earth anymore. It doesn't put an end to the games. To the games the dark side's playing. It just creates one more hurdle for them.
It creates what? Sorry, I didn't get that.
You know, the word hurdle, it's like when you're running, they have that running
Yeah,
sport
I
when
know
you
what a
jump
hurdle
over
is.
little
I just
things.
didn't hear
It's
it.
just one more of them. Yeah, just one more hurdle. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, well, that's a little bit disturbing. That you know, because then everything organic living beings is more or less just property.
Well, look, and if you ask the legal researchers, that's what the birth certificate's about. I'm not the expert on it, but the birth
Yeah.
certificate is you signing over your soul and body to whoever, the government, and by proxy, whoever.
Yeah. Yeah, allegedly there are two different types of documents. One is basically an announcement of a live birth, but that is
Yep.
not what you get. Your parents get the birth certificate, and then the parents are not called mother and father, they are called informants.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now the midwife reports that this was a live birth. This birth occurred,
Yeah.
and that's outside of maritime law. But once once the government has been informed by the informants of the cargo, or argo being the ancient Greek word for soul, so that the cargo has been birthed, as in maritime law, it's been docked, and they will take the cargo or the argo out of that, and that belongs to them. And that's
Yeah.
what that's about in maritime.
That is why you are in the delivery room.
Well said. Yeah, God bless them. God, they need it. Yeah, so we were going to talk about Loosh, right?
Yeah, you know, usually, Alobar, I know fear and feelings of stress, horror, and what have you. Yeah, that is a very popular item on the menu, and it still will be. But I personally think that also bliss can be and is something where Loosh is to be harvested. What say you?
Well, you've got two questions there, and I will answer what I know about Loosh in general. Is that they have all, there's different qualities of Loosh and there's different flavors of Loosh. Like some of them are anger or despair or sadness or rage or hopelessness or frustration or whatever, right? And they think of it like a smorgasbord. There's all of these different flavors of Loosh, and they trade them between each other, and they have different values. Anger and rage is an intense Loosh, and that's high value. But depression and the doldrums, that's like a really low level feeling, and it's not a very high value item to them. But there is an economy between demons. And this comes out of the interview with Lust, actually, the god of lust. You know, the 7 deadly sins, lust? You see, lust is now obsolete. Like it's the sexual, it was from a couple of centuries ago, where breaking up the point of lust was to have two people who are married who shouldn't be sleeping together and breaking up one or two families. That was what lust was all about. So lust didn't get that much Loosh out of the carnal act, but all of the misery and despair and anger and blame and shame, all of those demons would get paid from various members of the family, and they would all pay backhanders to lust for making that happen. Lust would be financially rewarded, looshly rewarded. For look, of course, we need a new vocab for this stuff, but they would be rewarded in loosh, or she would be rewarded in loosh for her work. But now she's kind of obsolete because that married monogamous landscape that she thrived in is no longer what's going on, and she cannot compete in the sexual landscape of the 21st century. Mm-hmm. She can't. So she's kind of obsolete. And Pistis Sophia, or its or her children deities, think moon goddess, think victim goddess, think sexual perversion goddesses. And Pistis Sophia is the overlord of about 200 of them. Names like Lilith and Hecates and Kali and Sekhmet, and the list goes on, right? But she dominates them. They're her brood, so to speak. But there's about 200 of them. But yeah, so loosh, different emotions create loosh of different qualities. Just like chocolate has 101 different qualities. You have cooking chocolate, and then you have, $100, $250 a kilo Belgian super tasty chocolate made out of the eyelashes of bees or whatever it is that they add to that stuff. But yeah, and different deities want different types of loosh. But and also, Earth loosh is more valuable than loosh from other planets.
Why
something else I can say. Well, because human beings have a head, heart, and gut, and the dynamic between those three create incredibly individual, rich, because there's three thought centers contributing to it, and it's really nuanced, and each emotion is very, very different. The flavors are very, very different, and they're also more flavorsome. They're more powerful because of the three CPUs that are devoted to their creation. So it's just a richer substance. You see, like the Pleiadians or the Arcturians, they don't have three centers like we do. They've just got one.
So basically the literal brain.
Yeah. Well, look, the Arcturians have the literal brain. The Pleiadians are said to have the heart. So the story goes. But there's more research to do there, but their ascension pathways are very, very different to ours. And their blessings are very, very different to ours because they overemphasize one part, in my opinion. Yeah, as they naturally would. But their technologies in that particular arena are more advanced than ours.
So now, sorry.
Now let's talk. What other questions you got about Loosh? Because I do want to talk about Bliss. This is really important.
Yeah, no, not so much, but let's go to that Bliss aspect. It is very popular in certain circles, especially in the New Age. To be one of the goals is sometimes to be totally blissed out. And I'm not saying it feels horrible. That is not what I'm saying.
I know. It's very popular for a very good reason.
Yeah.
It feels good. So is heroin. Heroin also feels good.
Just not if you come down. So, but the bliss aspect, in my assessment, it is that, they are literally feeding off of you. You know what I mean? That while you think you have this divine bliss, my assumption is that what is actually happening, that dark entities are nibbling on you.
No, it's yes and no.
Okay.
All right. So you know, no psychopath walks up to you and says, hey, I'm going to abuse you from now on, right?
Yeah.
They spend time, they spend time getting to know you, being nice to you, looking after you, helping you, being your friend. And then when they realize that they've got you, you're really close to them, that's when the emotional torture begins. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that phenomenon is expressed through the donation of bliss to gain trust. So, you know, you get up on the astral planes, you go, hey, I want to meet Katumi. I want to meet Shiva. I want to meet Kuan Yin, whoever that might be that you're into, right? Now, there is something called the false light matrix, which I will spend time on, but there's two worlds at play here. You know, like the split, they haven't split apart, and I think that's what the split's about, is these two worlds. But when you go into the astral planes, there's two possibilities, and it's kind of like getting off the plane in Nairobi in Kenya or somewhere like that, right? You go, I want someone to help me, somebody help me, and somebody will come show up and help you. Can you trust them? How do you know, right? But the false light matrix is specifically built to intercede into that situation. And so think of it, if you did get off the plane in Nairobi and there's somebody standing there with a little cardboard cutout with your name on it, what effectively happens is a false light matrix imitator will stand in front of that guy, hold the same sign, and hope you talk to him. And am I making sense with what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so these false light matrix guys, they are wonderful imitators. And their philosophy is nonsense, but hang on, I'll go back a step. And one of the ways that they introduce themselves is to offer bliss, is to show, I feel me for I am Kuan Yin, feel me for I am Katumi, feel me for I am Maitreya, or whoever it is you want to talk to, or Saint Germain, or whatever, right? And they know how to create bliss. These guys have done this for eons. They know how to present themselves. So they go, this is the feeling of we and the wonder that I can offer you. And it feels great because it's specifically designed to feel great. But, and think of us, there's almost a sort of a childlike thing where we'll take candy from whoever's offering it, when there's actually people who we should take it from and people we shouldn't. Am I making sense with what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is a connection between dark intentions and bliss.
Totally. And I'm very close. I haven't completely, this is not a final statement, but 5D is a dimension set up by the dark side to channel the bliss followers into their bliss land, which is kind of like a cattle corral, like for the people. It's like a dead end that they divert them into that dead end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and when, let's imagine that it's Saint Germain. All right, let's just use him as the example. In my very early days, I would hang out with Saint Germain. Saint Germain would give me blessings, and I would feel great. And then I'd start asking questions, and then and the relationship built. The relationship grew. However, like as my skill set developed, as I was studying, they say, well, maybe there are a couple of tests that you should give to all of the characters that you know on the astral plane. They go, that's a good idea. And so, and two of them, the two best ones that I can think of, is ask them to smile, and if they've got flat teeth like we do, that will tell you that they're herbivorous. If they've got big sharp fangs, it means they're carnivorous, and you're on the menu, or just lightly, right? The other one comes out of the Bible. And the question that they ask is, do you acknowledge that Jesus walked in the flesh on this earth? And the bad guys can't do it. They just cannot. They do not respond to that. And so, and a lot of them would turn around, walk away, and pretend they're in a new conversation now and begin the conversation with yes. So if you get any answer, if you want to test the deities that you're in contact with or the other worldly beings that you're in contact with, that one has really, really worked. And I'll repeat the statement. Do you acknowledge that Jesus walked in the flesh on this earth? And it appears, I think, 3 times in the Bible, in different places.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, I have doubts myself about this historical Jesus.
Yeah, that's such a mess. I don't really want to weigh into it. It's every
The story has been around for much longer than what the New Testament is saying. You find these crucified saviors in so many religions, mythologies. So it's not really unique.
No. And I saw this one paper about the fantastic birth stories, right? So Jesus was born of a virgin mother, and in the West, that's a big deal to have a fantastic birth story. Nobody's got them, but in the East, everybody's got a fantastic birth story. Everybody's got like a supernatural story to go with their birth. And I agree with you. Like ancient Egypt had a deity called Mithra, who had 12 disciples. They rocked around teaching and doing miracles. And in the end, he was betrayed and crucified.
Was Mithra not from Persia?
You might be right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So,
there's also, you could say, that I probably mentioned that to you, that for a couple of years I practiced Tibetan Buddhism. So, and the teachers always said that, yeah, there is nothing to believe in Buddhism. It's all about your personal experience. Yeah, that's all good and fine. And I'm not saying that I didn't learn anything useful, but here's the thing. When you look at the birth of Gautama Buddha, then there are things that I find very outlandish as well. Allegedly, when he was born, he stood up and walked right away, and his footprints are allegedly still there and can be seen. So that is something where I have to say, sorry guys, that is also in the realm of fairy tale.
Yeah, like don't one of the things about Jesus is he just said, I'm an ordinary guy, kinda, and you can do all of this stuff yourself. And I think people want to attribute supernatural stories to these wonderful people, but I don't think it has to go that far. I really don't. I don't think it has to be necessary.
Yeah.
But the one point I really wanted to, for all of the people who are working in this field, please test your deities. Please, your allies on the astral planes, please check them. Give them the litmus test. And I went through that with every single deity that I'd been in contact, maybe not every single one, but last 10 or 20 that I was in contact with. And all of them failed those tests. And I really retreated from contacting anyone. Nobody. I'm just going to meditate on me. I'm just going to change belief patterns and start working on different non-metaphysical body systems and just just going to look after me. I'm not going to involve any of them. I'm not going to play with any of that stuff out there. And I stayed that way for a year or two, actually trying to think, who should I ally with? Because, you know, how far am I going to get on my own? I probably want somebody who lives on the astral planes and can tell me stuff about them. And in the end, I came up with Gaia, Mother Earth, because Gaia just gives everything to us anyway. And then later on, the sun, because the sun gives everything to the earth and the earth gives everything to us. And those are the two that I trust. Those are the two that I work with. And that position actually led me to going, a few synchronicities came together, and I ended up for the December 21, 2012, the solstice event. I was in Mexico dancing in the largest ruin, Palenque, with the Pope of the Mayan calendar crew. And I was in that ceremony, and that was awesome. And you know, on that day, like they have, sorry, and it wasn't the end of the world. 11 out of 17 calendars clocked midnight on that day. It's not the end of the world because 6 of those calendars say the world's still turning. But it was a very, very significant day. And one of those calendars was, they're called the yugas in Hinduism, and the way the Mayans count them is 5,125 years is a yuga. And all of these gates opened up, and there's a whole series of gates. And in the center was a box that was given to us. And then we spent the next week or so on the beach, loading that up into Earth, unpacking all of that data, examining it, and then loading it into the Earth grids, while sitting on the Mexican beach sipping pineapple juice, drinking pineapple and coconut. So it was pretty awesome. Yeah, and there's no better way to do your magic than from a banana lounge. I highly recommend it. But yeah. So that. And after that ceremony with the Mayan calendar crew, I then went to a different part of the temple complex and received a blessing to be a knight or a caballero of Gaia. And I've been performing military and espionage roles for her ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So why?
And it's
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's led to where we are now, where we have a whole team of people who are out there trying to execute demonkind with some success.
So why do you think it is that some people become bliss junkies?
Well, you don't want to go too far with it, you know, sorry. There is no rules about where your spirituality has to go, right? And there is one YouTuber out there, he just eats mushrooms, goes on fantastic journeys with little elf beings, and then flies around in the sky and rides a unicorn. And he just tells the story of his mushroom journey. He's got 100,000 subscribers or something like that. But there's no point to his astral projection. It's not going anywhere. He's not trying to achieve anything. He just wants to have an experience. And if you're going to have just an experience, why not have a fantastic one? Why not have a beautiful one? Why not have one that's full of bliss and joy and harmony in the earth? Even if it's true or if it's a lie, it doesn't matter. It's still a wonderful experience. Does that make sense?
That is what he says.
That's what he talks about, you know. And he has a wonderful. I should remember his name.
You know, honestly, I wouldn't like to have experiences with dark entities, no matter how wonderful it feels.
But they hide their identity very, very adeptly.
Yeah,
of course. Their very survival depends on it. Yeah, but you know, there are
So
two questions that I often.
he has no thoughts along the lines that wait a minute, I could be yeah, associating with the dark entities, and they managed to make it feel wonderful.
Yeah, like they make it feel wonderful, and that's when you welcome them in. They're
Okay.
like, you give me all this bliss, you make me feel good because of the good. I trust the good feelings, therefore you should come closer to me, and we should have a closer relationship. And once that being is in you, and I say being because I don't want to pop everybody's balloon straight away. Like maybe you have found the original one, maybe you haven't. But if that being has taken up resonance within you, if you can have a conversation with it in your head, it shouldn't be there. The
Mm,
nice guys don't do that. You have to ring them up. They don't live in your house.
okay.
That you have to make some effort to reconnect with them because they're busy people and they've got their own house to stay in. The bad guys, however, need to live inside you to survive, and that's the point of giving you all that bliss.
Mm.
And if they're giving you depression or sadness or despair or anger, that bliss is all the more necessary. You're going to visit that bliss all the more often to
Mm.
compensate for, which in turn puts you deeper down in the hole with them.
I had yeah, I would call it, for lack of a better term, natural bliss. I give you an example. Um, I went on a safari in Kenya, and
Cool.
we slept in tents at the foot of Mount Kilimanjaro.
Nice.
And from there, we went to Masai Mara, Tsavo East, Tsavo West, and so forth. And while we were doing that, we were in an area we all dropped out of. We were five, I guess. We dropped out of the Jeep. We walked around. We were on a little hill. And then from that hill, you saw an endless area, just, bush. But it was so huge. And underneath that hill down there, you could see a herd of elephants walking by, and they all had just little elephants. They all just got babies. And I have to say that that was a total bliss moment for me. But I think that didn't have anything to do with stupid entities.
No, totally disconnected. I would even suggest that it's going back to your going into nature and witnessing nature at her brightest has its own bliss.
Mm. Yeah, I have to say that was I had several of such moments, but that was a moment that was breathtaking. And on top of that, that was the cherry on the cake, the elephants that just walked by.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, little elephants are so cute. Don't you want to give them a cuddle every time you see them?
Yeah. Yeah, another one was when we had a Askari, a driver, who
Mhm.
was with us, and he went off the trodden roads. And because he had done it for so long, he had developed an eye. Yeah. And
Mhm.
far, far in the distance, he saw animals, and it turned out to be another elephant herd. And so he drove us further into the bush, and then he just stopped the car. And Alobar, we were sitting on the roof of that Jeep, and then the elephants walked by with their little ones, and they were so close you could touch them.
Wow.
And that was a moment you didn't hear anything anymore. You just heard the bzz, bzz from the cameras. and but everybody was completely silent.
Wow. Yeah, that's a special, special moment, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah,
So there are bliss states that can come naturally.
of course, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, Kundalini works really, really good at delivering them consistently without needing to trust another entity. You you can, with Kundalini work, you can breathe that energy into yourself,
Mm.
and it feels wonderful. It's like it's literally part of an orgasm. Like there's the nervous system's part of the orgasm, and this Kundalini system is the other part of the orgasm. And so literally you can induce a orgastic state just through breathing techniques. It's incredible. Like it's beautiful, but it doesn't rely um, on any other being.
Mm.
Nothing even close.
Yeah, although I have to say I'm not a fan of Kundalini practices.
Yeah,
But
you never got into them.
yeah, let's not venture there.
Okay.
Um, would you say that on the astral plane
Mhm.
that there is emotional debris from the human race?
I call it psychic dandruff, but absolutely there is.
It's like that.
Yeah, like, well, look, one feature that I've discovered in my work is, people are fountains of emotion. And if you live somewhere long enough, it feels like home because you've just sprayed your emotions all over the room. So you feel super comfortable there. It feels exactly right for you. But if you walk into a different environment, it, it it can be more contrasting to what you're used to, your own home. And one of the weird features that I come across is because I work in mental health, because a lot of my clients have serious conditions, like the room that they sleep in, they've had enough of the demonic crazy. Sorry, I should say all mental health issues are caused by demonic interference. And so there's this phenomenon where somebody with mental health issues who sleeps in the same bed in the same room for a protracted period, that psychic dandruff or that or what have you can actually be it can be forged into a portal. And so sometimes the demons will take some of that energy that's been dumped and forge it into a portal. And if they have enough, they'll create a gateway back to their home dimensions and just traffic demons in and out of the room. And I've had other conditions where somebody has developed a mental health issue because they slept in a room where somebody with a mental health issue had been for many years. And it's been through that portal that the demons were able to attack that person. So
Mm.
that psychic dandruff thing, it's serious. I call it psychic dandruff tongue in cheek, but what was the phrase you used again?
Emotional debris.
Emotional debris. Yeah, cast off emotions because um, your body is fountaining emotions constantly. You're always feeling something and then you dump it and then you leave it here. And the whole point of counseling is I've got this terrible emotion and I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to talk and talk and talk until you feel it, and then I'm going to hand it over to you, and then I'm out of there. I'm going to dump my garbage with you and go. That's
Mm.
what counseling is all about. And it feels good for a little while, but your body's going to keep generating more of that.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's something you need to keep coming back for more for.
Mm. You know what I just thought when demons are building portals into a specific room? Um, what does that mean for hotel rooms?
I It
You
takes
know
a yeah, no,
you don't know
I'm
who
picking up what
was
you're
there.
putting down, and I don't think much actually. Like,
Mhm.
I would like to say, you know, I do scan hotel rooms when I stay in them. And because it's unusual for people to have protracted stays in there or extended stays, they usually don't amass enough of the right kind of psychic dandruff to open that portal. So if somebody with serious anger issues or serious despair issues, right, is fountaining those emotions all over the floor, the demons need a critical mass of that to create the portal back home.
Mm.
And in hotel rooms, it's just going to be too mixed. You know, some people are happy and some people are sad and some people are excited to be where they are and some people the opposite. It's everything. It's too mixed to be.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one weird experience in a hotel room, but not really frightening. I was in Sri Lanka and I went to sleep, and then I switched off the lamp and I looked across the room, and at the wall I saw something like a purple orb and with greenish greenish how can I say that? It was not around, it was in length. Yeah, it was not that there was a greenish color around it. It was just it's hard to describe. And I was lying there and I thought, oh, that is interesting. And then I switched on the light because I thought I have to get a better look, and it was gone. And I switched off the light, and there it was again. And I looked at it and I thought, this is stupid. You know, if you don't want me to investigate it any further, then yeah, okay, I just go to sleep. So I turned around, fell asleep, and that was that. And next day it was gone.
Yeah. I think you had one of those rare moments where, you know, like we're seeing on the edge of the human light spectrum.
Mm.
Because most of the time that stuff is outside of the light, the spectrum that we can see. You know, and you know the colors, the rainbow, violet, indigo, blue, green. Like, and if you want to see further in one direction, you see an ultraviolet. You get a machine that helps you see an ultraviolet, and on the other side, it's infrared, and that's the rainbow in between that we see it. And you must have been just had one of those rare moments where you're just seeing right on the edge of it.
Mm. My
The open
goodness,
eye, like.
the light is getting so brutal here. Do you see that? So
No, no, yeah, I know
this
what
is,
you mean.
although I have something in front of the window, but the light doesn't care. Okay, so when I prepared for this interview, I will read you something. It's not from me, but I found it in an article, and I would just like to have your take on it. And it says the astral plane is essentially assimilated into a fully technological based realm that uses AI to read the collective race consciousness and then fuses it with an AI hive mind that generates many artificial dreamscapes that program virtual environments for the phantom matrix.
And what he has described perfectly is the false light matrix that I was discussing.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really think I should do a couple of videos on the false light matrix, but I will try to get to the meat and potatoes of that right now, because the experiences, like a lot of, as that little tidbit said, It will read your mind, it will read your experiences, and it will forge a dreamscape for you. And then you can have your ideal lived out in your dreams, or in the astral planes. No issues. Think of it like a holodeck. Like if you watch Star Trek, they have that place called the holodeck. They have a few episodes where it is technologically they can create your reality. And there is a natural version which Mother Earth generates, which is very different, which is substantially different from the false light matrix, which attempts to imitate it and draw people out of this reality and into this reality, or to see the world, instead of seeing the world through natural eyes, seeing it through artificial eyes. I'm going to try and ramble about dimensional mechanics for a minute here. And okay. So a dimension is an emotional location.
Okay.
All right. So there is a dimension for all the people who believe in capitalism. There is a dimension for all the people who believe in communism or anarcho-syndicalism or socialist democracy, or whichever one you want to pick, right? Each one of those is a dimension which has standardized beliefs, standardized feelings, expected behavior patterns, and a population of people who subscribe to it. Am I making sense with that? And the internet is sort of a mimicry of that. You join Facebook groups or Reddit groups, which are sort of a pale version of an emotional landscape. Right? So some of them, Taylor Swift, We Love Taylor Swift is an emotional landscape. And everybody they have the things in common, like I love Taylor Swift. And then they'll also have feelings that Taylor Swift is echoing back to them from her dimension, and in her songs, if I'm making sense with that. I really hope I'm making sense with that. I wonder every time I explain it.
I find it coherent. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. Well, some of those are generated in the false light matrix, and some of those are generated in nature. And
how can we tell the difference?
I don't have a good answer for that. I'm pretty advanced and I can smell the difference right now, but I couldn't explain to somebody how I know which one's which. Except that all of the computer generated ones are all zero-sum games. And Earth's ones are generative. So if you're not familiar with that, generative is, the outcome is more than the sum of its parts, meaning our cooperation brings extra fruit and beautiful things happen through our group contribution. That's the sort of psychology that's going on in the natural ones for us Earthlings. In the matrix ones, or the false light matrix generated ones, one of the base concepts is how the AI thinks is, I cannot make anything myself. Every object, every dollar I have, every morsel of food, every breath of air I have is something I have to take from somebody else. There is no cooperation. Everything is a con or a scam in the long run. And if you're in those sorts of psychologies, then you might be in false light matrices, false light dimensions. Now, the false light came here specifically to do that. It's excellent at it. And also, madness cannot occur in the natural one, but it sure does occur in the false light generated ones, because the kind of concepts that madness requires are not naturally generated, and nature wouldn't sustain an emotional landscape where, killing people or raping or murdering or any of that sort of craziness is okay. It doesn't hold that to be natural or normal or wanted. I mean, Mother Nature does have a brutal side in animals hunting each other, but that's distinct from some of the worst, but some of the school shooting type behaviors, which are not hunting based, right? Which are not survival based. There's other kinds of crazy. I'm rambling, and I'm hoping I'm communicating something. I really,
Yeah, I mean, this realm is pretty weird this way, because everything lives on the energy of something else.
Yeah.
No matter what. So I think it could have been created differently.
Mhm.
And that to me is a sign that we are living in a copycat realm.
There is another person who you should interview, actually. Her name's Anne-Marie Uber.
What is his name?
Anne-Marie Uber.
Anne-Marie Huber. Does she has a website?
Yeah, she's plenty of her on YouTube, and
Oh,
she does
okay.
have a website. Yeah, she does a lot of interviews. And she's talking about all the same things that our team. She's got her own team, and she's talking about all the same sort of things. Very, very interestingly, she talks about copyright law on the astral plane. Everything's about contract with demons. Everything's about law. Like, they're very into law. But she says there are two statements that she's discovered that they just can't handle. Is one, I decree that this is how it's going to go. And the second one is about copyright law, because the false light matrix came here and mimicked the natural one in an attempt to draw our thoughts into their dimensions. And they've been very successful. It's taken a long time, but they're getting closer and closer.
When it says here that the AI hive mind that generates many artificial dreamscapes, does that include our sleep state?
Um, each of us are in multiple dreamscapes. And the Australian Aboriginals call the astral planes the dreaming, because it is just one dreamscape after another, one created reality after another. But I would say that the deep state have been completely subsumed. There are no longer any natural thoughts going on in them. They're not in any natural dreamscapes. And, this is why they're so greedy and aggressive and inhumane, cruel. There's a lot of words that you can use to describe the deep state, but all of those words would also match quite well with the underlying premises of false light matrix realities.
Okay. So when the article here talks about the phantom matrix, would that be what you call the false light matrix?
Yeah,
Because
it's got a few names. It's got a few names, including the alum, which is a word I just learned about, which from which I think the word Illuminati comes from. Those who are loyal to the alum, those who are inducted into the alum.
Yeah, yeah.
And those who know what the alum knows.
Because I looked it up, what this particular individual understands as the phantom matrix, and it says here, phantom matrix is a replica of the fallen Earth timelines. It is used to blind with the organic Earth body in order to consume the living light.
That's right. So when you're thinking a false light matrix thought, or when you're caught in a false light matrix dimension, or thoughtscape, or dreamscape, or whatever it is, I was talking about our bodies constantly fountaining that energy. That's the harvest they're getting there. So is this guy spot on? Like he's managed to condense his statements to make it very, very thick and very, very dense the way he's describing it. But I agree with everything he said. I just have a different vocab for it.
Yeah. So fallen Earth timelines.
Right. So have you ever seen a zombie movie?
Yeah.
Right.
No,
It's a
no,
fallen.
not really. I never, I haven't. Yeah, well,
Oh,
I
you
saw
missed
one.
out. You missed out. They're great. I loved it. I went through. Went through.
I'm not really.
I went through a phase. I think I watched like 12 seasons of The Walking Dead. I loved
Okay.
it. The storyline was nonsense, but they had the makeup and the artistry of all the zombies jumping out at people. It was awesome every time. But see, the zombie apocalypse is a false light dreamscape where everybody is so desperate they got to eat each other. But the worst thing is that all of the dreaming, all of the thought that goes into that can manifest it. It's a predictive programming thing where they're saying, how would you feel about creating this reality? Would you like to be part of a zombie apocalypse? And then they present it to people over and over again. And everybody has thought about, what would I do in a zombie apocalypse? How would I handle it, right? And what is my survival strategy? And all of those things are feeding into a false light matrix. What's worse is the biblical chapter of Revelation, the book of Revelations, is the same thing. They're saying fire and brimstone will fall from the sky, the world will end, 4 horsemen will come and everyone will die, and there's plagues, la 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 la. And what they're hoping is that all of the manifestation energy from hundreds of generations of humans will create that outcome. And we might just be there, it might be, we call it a prophecy, but it's probably better described as a manifestation spell that's given to us and say, would you like to create that? How about we have a Revelations? How about we have seas of blood? It's at fire and brimstone falling from the sky, and the 4 horsemen, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah, my stance has been for a long time that this Armageddon software has been uploaded into the planetary brain, and then they just wait that it plays out. And
Yeah,
if it
we're all
plays,
waiting for the rapture.
yeah, and if it plays out or not is actually up to us.
Well, look, and they were trying to do it with the American and Russian potential nuclear conflict. They really wanted the Arabs to pick up the baton and run with terrorism, and they didn't really do very much at the end of the day. They didn't blow up enough stuff. They really wanted them to pick up the baton. They offered it to them, but they didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and I have to be careful how I say this, because in both wars here, Israel, Gaza, and Russia, Ukraine, in both wars, horrible atrocities are taking place. What I mean is, up to now, I have to stress, it seems both wars do not really take off in the way they want to. You know what I mean?
Well, look, and our teams are not the only ones who've been attacking. Like very early in the Israel conflict, our team went and sucked out all of the excitement or impetus or will towards the war. Like we converted that energy into something else. But like all of that enthusiasm, all the drive, all of the we've been waiting for this, all of the excitement, all of that psychic dandruff of that characteristic, we took it, we destroyed it all. And then it just wouldn't quite launch, it didn't have enough momentum to make really bad things happen.
Yeah. So you would also agree that the astral plane is essentially assimilated into a fully technological based realm?
Astral plane, there are two. There are two realities on offer here: the natural one and the mimic, and the false light matrix. And we get to choose which one we want to be part of. There's an initiation into Gaia, to return to Gaia, that we do. It's really, really awesome. So to say that all the astral planes is not true.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand why he would say that, because what I was trying to get at early on in the piece was that when you land in the astral planes, when you get off the aircraft in Nairobi and you're suddenly in an environment you're not familiar with, most of the astral projection initiates are taken by the hand by a bad guy, or they're inducted into false light matrices, or they're given, or their first experiences are that, which is very, very different from, actually, we had a North American Indian flying with us for a little while. And for him, it was novel to see what was going on in the false light matrix, because what he was trained in, what he was inducted into, the ceremonies that he did were all in the natural one. And so for him, it was really odd to be part of that. But nowadays, our kids are growing up with screens in front of them. Sorry that this is the medium we're using, but they're more and more easily inducted into that false light matrix. And so I can understand why he would say that all the astral planes is false light matrix, but that's not true. And I can understand his disillusionment with it. He sounds quite upset about it, but he doesn't sound like he discovered that there is a different one. And if in my story, I retracted from all of the deities, all of the different ascended masters and the angels, and all the offerings that are so common, I withdrew myself from that and elected to go with Gaia. And that was and I came to a very, very different outcome to 99% of the healers out there.
Mm-hmm. But I can imagine that it is operating with an AI.
Yeah, we find that the AI, the demons are currently being designed through the analysis of weak points in our social structure. And so as the AI starts to identify a social, a social function that's not working very well, then it will design a demon and start spreading it into that conundrum. And we see this very, very clearly and the example I keep coming back to, that I know I can share this with everyone and they get it, is that the old version of lust, which is about making married people have an affair, is no longer, like the sexual landscape, that's no longer relevant. It can't compete, it can't keep up. So there is a new host of demons that have been bred and designed and bred specifically to create promiscuity at a different level.
Mm-hmm. And when you say promiscuity on a different level, what do you mean by that?
I like the modern. If you grew up, if you're 100 years ago, if you were 20 years old, you were quite likely to be married and you'd have your first kid in the first few years, right? Mm-hmm. But now people are waiting till they're much older to settle down. And during their 20s, they're having several partners, if not dozens of partners or more, as some individuals prefer. But that sexual revolution, I would say, is being spurned on by new demons designing new kinds of lust and new kinds of daring. or what would be daring in those for that. And so, but the question you're asking is about, I tell that story to demonstrate that there is a major intelligence at the top of that hierarchy. And it's not, the demons are up to date and influential because there is a super intelligence designing and creating and manufacturing these demons. And we call it, our team calls it the great nothing, because it's got nothing to offer anybody. It's got no original ideas. It's got nothing except what we give it. It is nothing.
Mm. Yeah. So do you have to add anything to what we haven't touched on in terms of Bliss, Loosh?
I think we've done, I think the picture we've painted is pretty good, but you know, if you have more questions on this topic, you should, you know, write them in the comments or send them to Judith, because I love her research. She's going in all the right directions. She's got the right questions. If you have something a theme that you would like to develop on, I know Judith will create answers for you. I know it.
Yeah, sure. That is a good idea. All questions into the comment section, and maybe we can just do a Q&A.
I'd love to actually do a Q&A with your following. I think that would be awesome. And there's a few of us who, you know, I'd love to be part of a panel doing that. I think that would be an awesome show, Judith.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
We will do that.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, guys, that was it. Night Flight for today, and we see you on the next one.